Alright, so here is the telescope from 1600s to now by me. Alright, so number one in the timeline is 1608 to 1610, which is the early beginnings of the telescope. Starting off with Hans Lippershey. He was the first person to apply for a patent to his version of the telescope, which this telescope could magnify objects 3 times more. His objects had lenses convex, which points outwards, and concave, which points inwards, which it bends, I guess, inwards and outwards for magnification. And then there's Zacharias Janus and Jacob Metis. I hope I said that right. Zachary Janus and Jacob Metis were Dutch spectacle makers, and while Hans was working on his version of the telescope, they had the same ideas as Hans, so they were applying for a patent only a few weeks after Hans. Galileo Galilei. He was named the first astronomer to use the telescope for astronomical observations after Hans's developments, using a very close version of Lippershey's he made some Amazon discoveries of the moon. Amazing discoveries of the moon of Jupiter, phases of Venus, and the crates in the moon. All right, so number 2, we have 1611 to 1655, which is where most of the early advancements started. 17th century, Johannes Kepler created the Keplerian telescope, which uses 2 convex lenses instead of a concave and a convex. This created a wider field of view and made the image clearer for when people are looking out into space. One setback is that it had an inverse, the image was inverted, so it was upside down. And then Christian Huygens, he was a Dutch scientist that developed the refracting telescope, which gave a longer viewing length. This telescope was used for the first observation of Saturn's rings. Now, number 3, we have 1668, which is the birth of the reflecting telescopes. So with Sir Isaac Newton, he designed the reflecting telescope. In 1668, he built the first reflecting telescope, and he named it the Newtonian. The refracting telescope failed to focus on all colors of light, and he uses concave mirrors to gather light and flat secondary mirrors to direct the light more efficiently. And also, this is what it looked like here. In 1721 to 1781 was future improvements. John Hadley was a British mathematician. He improved Newton's reflectors by using a better, more precise mirror. This helped publicize the reflecting telescopes. This is also what it looked like here. Then there's William Herschel. He was a British astronomer who made a huge contribution to the telescope development. He created some of the largest telescopes, as you can see here. This is a 40-foot long reflector, which is crazy. This is when he discovered the planet Uranus in 1781. Now, number 5, we have 1814 to 1845, and the telescopes are getting bigger. So with the Herschel telescope, he used William's work, and his sister Caroline, she used the telescope to make huge discoveries. Then we got Chester Morhall in the 1800s. He created the first telescope with an achromatic lens, which helped fix the refracting telescope flaw of because the image wasn't as clear and it was reflecting, and it creates a much sharper image. This is an image of what it looks like. Then the Great Refractor, which is gigantic compared to the early developments. The Earl of Ross in Ireland created the largest telescope of all times. This was known as the Leviathan of Parsonstown, with a diameter of 72 inches. It was the largest telescope in the world until the 20th century. 1930s to 1990s is when the radio telescopes and space exploration started. Radio astronomy began in the 20th century with Karl Jansky and Grote Reber. and they were the first founders of using radio waves to study astronomical objects. These studies led to development of the radio telescope, which could observe objects that aren't visible to the normal observer or just a normal telescope, and this was a radio telescope. Then Hubble's Space Telescope, which was one of the most important milestones in history of telescopes, still talked about to this day, still in our, it's actually was covered in our content for this class. On April 24th, 1990, they sent the Hubble telescope up into orbit that orbits around our Earth. It can provide incredibly detailed images of distant galaxies caused by the Earth's atmosphere. This telescope has led to some incredible discoveries. Then 2020 to present, the most modern development. James Webb's Space Telescope became the most advanced telescope in December of 2021. It's designed to observe infrared light. It is given to develop our understanding of the universe and can look incredibly deep into space and very far back in time. So, since the 1600s, the model of the telescope has obviously evolved greatly, as we can see through images and developments of the technology. The telescope originated from being a simple magnification device to look up into space, see the stars, see some cool planets, and now it has deepened our entire understanding of the universe. Here are some of my resources. Thank you!